What's going on, everybody? This is your Week 14 Blue Rush preview show. The Giants are back at MetLife Stadium on Sunday to try and stop a 7-game losing skid, and they've got the 4-8 Saints coming to town. So let's get straight into the show because we've got a lot of storylines going into this game to cover, but we're going to do it with the twist and a Tynes. Wink, wink. He's our Giants beat writer for the Post, and he's always right when he writes. He's Paul Schwartz. And he's number 91 on the Giants' top 100 player list. That's actually lower than Saquon. He's kicked the Giants to 2 Super Bowls, and he doesn't hold back his thoughts on Twitter. Welcome back to the show, a Blue Rush original. Lawrence Tynes, everybody. Paul, Lawrence, what's going on, fellas?
Hey, man, it's really good to see you guys. Thanks for having me. I've been watching from afar. I've been watching the shows, so I haven't completely abandoned you guys, but I've enjoyed it. It's not real fun with all the losing again, though.
I miss you jumping on Paul, man. I miss you really getting after Paul.
I'll get on him today. I'll get on him today when he's wrong.
He has nothing to get on me for. No. I was on the 100-player committee. I was on the 100-player committee. I put in a good word for Lawrence Tynes,
Oh, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that.
I had him at 120, but whatever. Whatever.
Hey,
somebody else got him.
Saquon was way too low. Like 95, I think he was. Again, if you could redo it today, he'd be like number 8. Yeah. He'd make like a 87-person jump.
He's not number 8 on the Philadelphia Eagles list. He's not number 8 on the Giants list.
I know.
There was a lot there. There was a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, when you go through, Rich Seubert and Sean O'Hara versus guards and centers from 1960 and Amani Toomer and Homer Jones, it was almost impossible. It really was. I mean, I thought we did a good job looking back at it. I thought there was some that were like, maybe that's a little high, maybe that's a little low.
Did you guys decide like it might be easier if it was a coin flip? Did you say, well, this guy's alive, this guy's dead, this guy can't bitch about it, and say, we'll just go with the guy who's living?
Well, no, there were no coin flips.
There had to be a lot of close calls.
There were, but we didn't do it that way. We all gave our suggestions, and then they tabulated them. So to avoid that, well, you're crazy. He's got to be 46. You have him at 52. It was all tabulated, so the emotion was taken out of it. The emotion was all internal with me doing it at home and then submitting it, and then the other committee members did the same thing, and it was all tabulated. I mean, there's no perfect list for 100 years, I mean, boy, and
I want to know who tabulated this freaking Hall of Fame finalist list. Tom Coughlin's not in it. What a joke.
Anyway, he's not in it?
He's not a finalist, Brandon.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Mike Holmgren is.
Yeah. Look, I think they'll get in. Eli is on the list, right? So Eli, be interesting to see if he goes through. Yeah. Tiki Barber did not make that cut. Tom Coughlin did not make that cut. Look, you guys are all going to be very biased towards Tom Coughlin. I think he's a Hall of Fame coach, and I'm not into the don't get it the first year, get it the second year. You're not the first ballot. Either you are or you aren't, but I know everyone can't get in the first time. Yeah. I think what gets discounted from Tom Coughlin a lot is what he did in Jacksonville. I think it's all the Giants stuff, and it's not, just Jacksonville does not get him in the Hall of Fame. But he ran completely one of the most successful expansion team ascension ever. So, I mean, I think that kind of people don't, they didn't win the Super Bowl, they didn't get to the Super Bowl, we'll dismiss that. But that was an incredible thing, which got him the Giants job, basically.
Yeah. There's no Jacksonville Jaguars without Tom Coughlin. And I think of Tom Coughlin because of the New York Giants and all, but what he did for that franchise before he came to New York, obviously that's extra when it comes to his resume. So congratulations, Tynes, on being 91 on the top 100, the 100th season of the New York Giants. And it's going the way it is now, 2-10. I'm reading your tweets all throughout the year, man. You get us. You get the fan base. So let's just start off with your views from kind of looking from the outside in. What have you seen when it comes to New York Giant football in 2024?
Oof. Well, I mean, bad quarterback play and injuries again, right? That's kind of been the story. The defense started out fairly good, I thought. They were leading this. They had some crazy stats where they were first ever to have X amount of sacks before week 8 or 7, something like that. Pressures. But again, I was a staunch Daniel Jones supporter. I don't hide behind that. I thought he could take the next step. Obviously, he did not play well. He had ups and downs, and early he played well, and the defense maybe didn't play well. I think kind of the, nail in the coffin was kind of that where everyone was watching at 9:30 in the morning over in Germany. I mean, Daniel Jones basically lost them that football game. He did not play well. And so you move on from him. Don't want to beat a dead horse here. You move on from him. You were never going to keep him past this year anyway. And then obviously he gets released, which was a nice gesture by the Giants, and he is now a Minnesota Viking. But overall, man, just not enough consistency from this team. It was too yo-yo up and down. They're just not very good anywhere. And then, of course, you lose Andrew Thomas. It seems like every year we lose Andrew Thomas, which is its own problem and concern. This team just falls apart. It's last year when we lost him early. This year we've lost him, and it creates this issue at tackle. So just another, Graham got hurt again. So it's just another very, very disappointing season. I would hate to be John Mara.
You just mentioned, you'd hate to be John Mara, and I was going to wait for this, but since you brought it up now, I mean, I think it's, they could finish 2-15. I mean, they could. We can break down the next, and if they don't, they'll finish 3-14. Or they'll win 4 games, maybe. It's going to be one of the worst seasons in the Giants' history. And if you go, if they don't win this week, they very likely will not win another game unless the Eagles just don't want to play in week 18, and even their backups might be better than the Giants. What do you do? What do you do? I mean, you have opinions. You are in that building. You have the rings, the trophies, all that stuff. You've agonized with, Pat Shurmur and Joe Judge. And, we all thought Daboll and Shane in 2022 was okay. They're going to be it for the next decade or so. The team has turned around. What do you think is warranted, if they win 2 or 3 games, which they will? I know it's not your decision, but your heart is in this. We know your head is in it and your heart is in it. I think the easy things to do is to fire everybody, because that's what people do when you win 2 games. What do you think? What would you like to see as a fan, as a former player? What's your sense?
Yeah, I played this game at home. This is probably very unpopular. I don't want to see them get fired. I don't want to see Daboll or Shane get fired. And the reason being is, and then I say to myself, well, what have they done to stay? And the answer is nothing. Like, I mean, if you look at Joe Shane's draft picks, I mean, they're horrendous. He can't hang his hat on this year, because we really don't even know how good those guys are. They just kind of stick out for this class. But if you look at the previous 2 drafts, it's not good. And then some of the glaring things are right. Leonard Williams, Julian Love, Bretterson,
Xavier McKinney.
Xavier, you essentially had the offensive and defensive player of the year in your building, and they're gone. So do we trust this regime to draft a quarterback, develop him, and win football games? Because I am of the belief that we can get just a few more pieces, because there's a lot of good talented players on this team. I am of the belief that, the Bo Nix type of thing, right? Look what the Broncos are doing. And they added a quarterback, and they've got some good players, but they haven't been very good. But the thing is, no one takes into consideration is Sean Payton. Sean Payton's been known to develop and be an offensive genius guru forever. Can we say that about Brian Daboll? Or was it Josh Allen? And so this is a long-winded. I want them to stay for the sake of, let me see what Brian Daboll can do with his own quarterback. That's what I want to see. And that would be the only reason. It doesn't mean it's the right reason, but that's the only reason I would want this regime to stay together and see and try it for 2025.
But with Paul mentioning how there's a chance this team may not win a game for the rest of the year, I guess 2-part question. One, do you think he's able to stay and get a stay of execution through that, especially when you see the Browns? The Browns are out of it, But the Browns are in every single game that they play, and they're going out with the mentality that they're going to play spoiler. So when we talk about Joe Shane and Brian Dable and everyone kind of wanting to keep them for at least another year so they can get a quarterback and we can see what they do, you as a player, you as a fan, you knowing the mirrors, you knowing the business of sport, what do you have to see from the coaches and the product on the field for these next 5 games for you as Mr. Mara to be like, okay, let's run this thing back at least one more year?
I mean, just effort. You know that, Brandon. You played the game. Just effort. Let's just see guys go compete. Let some younger guys play. I mean, we already know. Everyone in that locker room knows what's happening with the release of Daniel Jones. So just go compete and see what you have. You may have a diamond in the rough. There's some young players on the practice squad that are going to get to play late in the year. And, you got to be careful, right? There's a business part of this, too. And I hate to be the one saying this because obviously players aren't trying to lose games. But, I mean, you don't want to slip out of that 3rd or 4th pick. You want to be in the top 1, 2, or 3, in my opinion. And that's kind of what they're wrestling with as an organization is because, could you imagine, like, Drew Lock I think he can play a little bit. So you just got to be careful. You really do if you're an organization and you want – because those quarterbacks are going to go fast. And people are going to leapfrog you and try to get Shador and Cam Ward and whoever else is up there. I'm a big, Travis Hunter fan. So if he was at 1 and we had the number 1 pick, I would take Travis Hunter.
Absolutely.
I think he's the best player in the draft. I just don't believe in any of these quarterbacks that much. But again, I'm not an evaluator. I'm just watching from the couch. I just don't see that guy. Now, there's going to be quarterbacks taken early, and there should be. If I had to pick one, though, it'd probably be Shador, just because his accuracy is unbelievable. I just think he takes way too many sacks. He gets hit too much. And if you get hit if he got hit in the NFL like he did in college, he's going to be on the sidelines. It's a little bit different animal getting hit in the NFL.
I mean, the problem is that Shador Sanders and Cam Ward would not be in the top 3 or 4 in last year's draft. You know what I mean? Look, it's just the way it is. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be. I mean, Caleb Williams was a better prospect. Jaden Daniels was a better prospect. Drake May was a better prospect. I mean, hands down, those 3 guys are better prospects than anybody coming out this year. That doesn't mean these quarterbacks are not going to be good. One thing, I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but look, doing the Giants and tangents is better than looking at the thing.
Right.
Everyone loves Travis Hunter, and I think he should be the Heisman Trophy winner. But you're not going to play him 100 snaps in the NFL. Is he a cornerback? I mean, I think people would draft him as a cornerback, who can play wide receiver. But what does that mean in the NFL? It's not Shohei Ohtani who can DH and pitch. He can't play 65 snaps at cornerback and 50 snaps at wide receiver. So I don't even know what that versatility means. You know what I mean? What does that mean? And we've never seen that in the NFL. I mean, it's not high school. We can go both ways. What is he going to play? 10 snaps and special packages at wide receiver? What is that going to look like in the NFL?
Tynes, you want to take that? I'll take it.
I think he's a DB too. I think he's a corner. My concern with him, as an offensive player is him getting hit all the time. He's not a big guy, right? And he does take some pretty big hits in college. As we all know, the NFL safeties and DBs, they just hit much, much harder than college DBs. So I would be concerned about his durability as an offensive player for 60, 70 snaps in the NFL. But I do like him as a corner. I think he's silky smooth. He's kind of rangy. He's got some length to him. And I think he would stay healthier there versus getting hit all the time. But I still think you can, 10 or 15 snaps a game, you just platoon him out there and, put the fear of God in some of these defenses by packaging him together, whether he gets the ball or not. He's an asset on offense. I know you can't run him 60 plays here, 50 plays there, but you got, 10 or 15 plays of him. He can make a difference on offense.
Because out of that 10 or 15 plays, 5 of those are catches. And who knows, 5 for what, 60, 70 and a touchdown. And then you're not going to put him in there for run plays. You're not going to put him in there to run block. You look at the holes that this team has, so many holes, and they need so much. He could start at corner, be your CB1 while you try and figure out what Tay Banks is going to be. But he can also add some firepower on the offensive side of things as well. So I'm with you on that, Tynes, but they would have to go get the quarterback that they want in terms of free agency to bring that guy in because you're going to miss out on that quarterback in the draft.
I got one thing. I'd be stunned if they don't pick a quarterback with the top 1 or 2 picks. I'd be stunned.
I would be too. Yeah, there's no question.
That's the model. That's the model. You look. They're going to have like $40 million in cap space next year. Okay, now you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You sign a bridge guy, probably. A Drew Lock type, but better, hopefully. You play him a little bit. Jameis, yeah, Jameis.
Give me Jameis. I want Jameis Winston in New York,
without a doubt.
He's a high wire act. He's fun. He's fun.
He is a lot of fun. Him. I don't think him and Dable would get along because Dable would not. Because he is up and down. But man, the 4 touchdowns, 2 pick sixes. It's just he is fun to watch. He is fun as hell to watch.
There were
His
more
energy.
big plays. There were more big plays in that game. I was watching that game, and it's like, what is this? This is a video game? There were more big plays on offense in that game and defense, just splashes, pick sixes, touchdowns than the ball in the air. I'm like, what sport is this? The Giants haven't done that in years.
No,
right? I mean, that was like these guys just throwing it up there. It was fun. It was fun.
And it's not like they're like some juggernaut, right? They got a good tight end in Njoku, and they've got Judy. And Judy went off, but I just love that Jameis is unafraid of any result or consequence. He just throws it, and I love that about him. It's going to obviously result in picks and crazy plays, but man, you got to appreciate his fearlessness.
And I think that's what Giants fans have been wanting. That's what you wanted to see out of Daniel Jones, that type of confidence. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't – if Daniel Jones is eating W's and all that, it's like, this is a little out of character when it comes to him. But just to have some sort of confidence to throw and push the ball down the field. And that's why I think Tynes, a lot of eyes are on Dable and this football team because, again, Stefanski and those guys in Cleveland, they're not going to the playoffs, but they think they can beat anybody when it comes to lining up.
And they can.
And they can. Paul, you wanted to talk about LT's view on the leadership in this locker room because that's come into question and blown up all throughout the New York sports news time. So Dexter Lawrence gone on IR. Where does this leadership come from these next 5 games when it's like you're not playing for anything per se?
I think about things like this. I never went through anything like this, so I try to put myself in this position. I was fortunate to be on winning teams my whole career outside of my stint in the CFL. But in the NFL, I was always on pretty good teams, over 500 teams, winning teams, Super Bowl teams, leadership teams. They've somehow, listen, Graham Gano's been out for a long period of time. Dexter's out. Who else? We traded Daniel Jones.
4 of the 5 captains, okay? You have 5 captains on the team, right? Daniel Jones released. Andrew Thomas, not part of the team now because he's hurt. Dexter Lawrence, not part of the team now because he's hurt. Bobby Okereke all of a sudden shows up in the injury report with a back, and they say probably week to week. So, I talked to him, and this will warm your heart. The long snapper, Casey Kreider, is the last standing remaining of the 5 team captains. And Casey was saying about, Casey's a great guy, and he is a leader, in a way that a long snapper can be a leader. He was talking very funny stories about going out for coin tosses. And he's all keyed up. They pretty much always, guess tails. And he said one time recently he went out for the coin toss, and then he was like BSing or talking to someone, and he looked down. Oh, you know what it was? It was in Munich. And he said, they said to him, fellas, this is a special coin. We have John Madden's picture on one side and a turkey on the other side, okay? It was for the Thanksgiving game. I'm sorry, not in Munich. It was in Dallas. John Madden one side, the turkey on the other side. So Kreider's like, that's really interesting. So they flip it, and it goes, it's tails, I think. So he said he went to look, and he goes down to look to see the turkey, and he looks up, and everyone is gone. They've all run back to the, he's the only one there, and it's like, oh, shoot, I better get back to the sideline here.
That's funny.
It's very funny. He's a good guy, but I mean, you never win that situation where there were no captains left. You know what I mean? And things. So what do you? I'd be also interested because you tweeted about this. Your take on Kayvon's take on Who
Yeah, I
can
didn't
talk
like
up?
that. I
Who
didn't
can
like
speak
that
up?
at all. I
Okay,
just you
go ahead.
can't sit there as a young player yourself who has actually not played well himself, if we're being honest, to validate the fifth pick of the draft and make comments like if you ball. Now there was some context to there, right? Because me and
Yeah, there
Ard
was.
kind of went back and forth on that, so I don't want to
He
put all
said
this
it's a
on him. But if,
meritocracy. The players
yeah,
who
so
do the most,
if you play good and then you
if
can
you
say
have the
something
right to
like,
say it, if you don't, and it was really also about Malik Neighbors. People said he's a rookie. Why is he saying this stuff? I didn't think much of what Malik Neighbors said was bad at all. I mean, he
I
doesn't
liked it.
phrase it great. And when he says, I don't care about drops, I know what he's saying. If I would ask you if you missed 2 field goals in a row, are you concerned about missing? I think you would say, I'm not concerned about missing. I'm concerned about improving my process so I don't miss again. So what do you think of what Neighbor said, what Thibodeau said? And is this like an unraveling here?
I think there's a lot of pent up anger, and obviously they're losing. Losing creates all kinds of issues on a football team. Obviously, we've had this show for 3 or 4 years, and that's all it's been is losing. So we've seen this evolution of emotions throughout the year, right? And then as it gets towards this time of year, it feels like these teams just, they've held it together for the most part, but you kind of start speaking out of emotion. Let me talk about Malik Neighbors first, though. I love him. I don't care what anyone says about him. I love him. He can say whatever he wants. And he's a young guy. He is going to have a C on his chest very, very soon. He is frustrated. He's frustrated with the whole quarterback thing and the offensive thing. And I'm a massive fan of Malik Neighbors, and you don't have to have an age to speak up. Thinking back on our teams, and this is going on back to what Kayvon said. This is why I have an issue with it doesn't matter. Like, and I know there was some context in the question, but I'm just saying we're talking about it because it brought up some ideas. Chase Blackburn, Kevin Booth, Dave Tollefson, Dominique Hickson, people that this generation on Twitter have no idea who the hell they are, probably, right? Unless you are a diehard Giants fan. Amazing leaders on our football team, on 2 Super Bowl teams, all those guys. And those are not guys you associate with playmakers or balling. But they had a role, and everyone had a role on our team. And there was a certain maturity about the 2 teams we were on, too. And this team is young. I mean, I haven't studied it. It feels like it's a young team. I think there's just some maturity issues, but make no mistake about it. I love Malik Neighbors, and he speaks his mind, and he cares. And if you have someone like him that cares, man, I'll go to work with him every day.
You kind of touched on it earlier, Tynes, how you were saying like this young rookie class. It's like we don't know how good they are. They're forced to make plays because the production isn't there for older guys, and the leadership, I guess, isn't there from older guys as well. So it goes back to 2007, man. Like you look at the production from my rookie class, the Steve Smiths, the Craig Dawes, Mike Matthews. Those guys would be leaders in this locker room right now because of their production.
Kevin Boss,
Aaron Ross,
Diassi.
but they didn't have to that rookie year because Richie Soybert, Sean O'Hara, Eli Manning, there was the veteran guys that were not only balling on the field, but had been through the business of sport, had been through the NFL a bunch of years, and they were the leaders. They were vocal. I think right now with 5 games left, no one wants a rah-rah leader right now. Just make sure you're going out there and you're doing your job. I think that's what it's come down to now when it comes to leadership. Would you agree?
Yeah, and if you remember too, Brandon, that season, our rookie year or your rookie year, was all those guys made a lot of plays in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
The Ahmad Bradshaws, the Zach Diassi's making a tackle in the Super Bowl. I mean, Kevin Boss in the Super Bowl, Steve Smith in the Super Bowl. Mag Matthews, an undrafted free agent tight end. I don't want to beat a team when they're down, and Lord have mercy, this team is down. But I do truly believe they have some pieces. And I know some people don't believe that. I think they do. But I just think it's going to help to have – I just feel like the offense goes out there – the defense goes out every Sunday and just feels like they have to pitch a shutout. And you can't play football that way. You can't play football that way and because they knew the offense would struggle to score points. And so it's just this whole yin and yang thing. It's just tough. It's tough to watch. But I do think a quarterback will help. I don't think it cures all else because if Andrew Thomas can't stay healthy and some of these guys, and JMS has not particularly looked great at center. But again, he's the least of your worries. They've got a lot of things to fix. But I just for the fans' sake, it's tough watch at home, guys. You guys cover this more closely than I do, but I care. So when I watch it, you're at this point now where our whole family sits in there and watches it, and there's really no emotional response, which is why you watch football, right? Yay! Or oh, that sucks. Why'd you drop that? That's why you watch football. We watch it like mummies, guys.
Yeah.
We don't care. Like, oh, yeah, nice play. And that's not why you want to turn on a Giants football game. You want to turn it on to feel those emotions, right? Because we love the team. But the last 4 or 5 weeks, we don't care. And I think a lot of the fan base is there, and I think that is a huge concern for John Mara and this organization.
And real quick, to go back to Malik Neighbors, I've talked to Plax and Amadi Toomer. Both of them love this kid. They love the dog that they have in them. And we saw on Hard Knocks when Brian Dable was talking to him, it was like, I want dogs. I want dogs. Well, when do dogs make the most noise? When they're frustrated and they're hungry. That's when they make the most noise. So he wanted a dog. They got a wolf. Now you got to feed the wolf to make sure that kind of quiets a little bit. But I don't want him. I don't like the fact that he said that I don't care about the drops, because that got taken out of context and it kind of blew up, because it's not the how many drops he's had. It's the when he's had drops this year, some costly games or some costly drops in some tight games. I just don't want that narrative to follow him in the offseason and then come into the next year, because we saw that could be the difference between people looking at him as like the next Jamar Chase or the next Jerry Jeudy. Because remember, Jerry Jeudy dropped a lot of balls in Denver his rookie year. So I just want him to kind of quiet that noise per se. But Drew Lock's going to have to get him the ball so we can see how spectacular he is, so we can overlook the 9 drops on the year, which he leads the NFL. But he also has 116 targets.
Who has
on
9?
the year.
Malik?
Malik has 9. Out of there's 9. Wow. There's 9 receivers with over 100 targets on the year. Malik Neighbors has 119 targets, 75 catches, 9 drops. He's first in drops.
Okay.
But
and there were some big drops early, right? If you remember the Washington game, and then maybe the Dallas game, but it was only just to get into position and maybe kick a field goal. I'm okay with those. He'll fix that.
Yep.
I think the thing that really has to concern you if you're the Giants is because of how emotional Malik Neighbors is as a person and player, which is what I would love as a teammate. I love the guy. You got to be careful that he does not let the media and the fan base and the kind of, because on Twitter they love him, but then he'll say something and the same people that love him will crucify him.
Absolutely.
It's I don't want to say the OBJ thing, but again, this is an elite receiver in the mold of OBJ. The Giants have to be very careful with him, just from a term. I mean, off the field, you just got to be, because you know how the fan base can get Brandon and Paul. I just don't want this kid to fall under and be some sort of villain. He's not a villain. He is a young player trying to figure out how to play in the NFL, and I think he's a star. Well, no, he's already a star, but you just got to be careful in the city with all the criticism of this young man. But it's going to come with the territory. I just hope he doesn't react to everything that's said about him.
All it takes is that one tweet from a fan that he sees, and it's probably a bot. And he blows up with it, and that's what gets retweeted and talked about on Get Up. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I've seen this, as a person who tries to set the narrative, right, as a reporter, sometimes it gets out of control. And around the country, and, everyone's looking, and around the league, they're looking at something inside the Giants locker room and it's telling me something. And I'm like, I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's correct. And I think Neighbors is one of those things. He's 21 years old. We're not going to get into this here, but I think race has something to do with it. When they see a guy speaking like that, and people don't like that sometimes. He doesn't always articulate what he wants to say as clearly as he needs to. After these games, we're all around him. He's all revved up. Saquon, remember Saquon? There were times where Saquon would do press conferences, right? With a hood over his head, right? Looking down, looking sullen, looking morose. He was a young player with the weight of the franchise and the offense on his shoulders. And the questions are, Why did you lose again? Why can't you score? What about that fumble? What about that not picked up first down? And you could see it weighing on Saquon, and Saquon was able to battle through it, even though he had some dark times. Now he's, maybe the best player in the league playing for a different team. So yes, Malik. But what I like about Malik is he was talking yesterday in the locker room on Wednesday about like his yards after catch and how they're not there. It's less than 9 per catch since he's come back in the 6 games from the concussion. You just don't see him running free and being that explosive player. That's the offense, that's the quarterbacks, that's the protection, that's everything. But, Brandon, I know you would speak to this. He said he's trying to get his head around quicker after he catches the ball so he can see the defender. He can see what hip he's aiming for. And that I think is very important, that him not just get sloppy out there and say, what the heck, the last 5 games I'll have my catches, that he still works his craft and becomes a better player. He's probably going to set the rookie record for receptions, but he doesn't have a touchdown since he's been back in the last 6 games. His yards after catch is not great. So, he was not nearly the impact that Odell was when Odell was a rookie, but he's going to have a lot more catches, but not the impact.
It sure as hell helps when you have Eli Manning throwing you the football versus what we.
Of course, yes, but it's important that they don't lose guys like this, and he gets sloppy, and it doesn't sound like because like you said, they miss tackle after tackle. It's easy for a linebacker to get sloppy in a game because he's trying to make a big play because they're losing anyway, and he's the future. Like I said, I have no real issues with him at all as for his attitude, for his comportment, for his anything. He's just getting beaten down by the losing. He's getting beaten down.
Tynes, I like what he said. And yes, it is a form of working your craft and trying to understand route technique and concept of where to be. But that's also developing bad habits because you want the rock. Trying to get that head around faster, or if the route says get to 14 times, where you got to get to 14. You can't break 14. At 13 to get the head around because you're like, all right, I'll get open faster because maybe the offensive line isn't giving Locke or DeVito time to throw the ball. If you don't turn that DB's hip by taking that extra step at 14, forget turning your head. He's jumping that route because he doesn't, one, you haven't ran a go route in forever, so they're going to be sitting on everything short. 2, they don't trust the quarterback. So I just don't want him to develop any bad habits by trying to speed up his route or trying to get his head around faster and not getting his depth or just having the proper techniques of running a route. I'm a little worried about that when he says that. So I think he means well, and he's trying to get open for his quarterback, but that could mess him up per se on a 3rd and a 3rd and 5 or a 3rd and 13 to where it's like you need route discipline there. But it seems like someone got to him and was like, hey, kind of tone down the rhetoric a little bit, not only to keep heat off the franchise, but to keep heat off of himself as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's 21 years old, guys. Like that.
Yeah.
That's a kid, man. I was still in college at 21. And he's having to deal in one of the biggest markets in pro football and deal with losing, which he's never done his whole life. Yeah. This is a change for him. And I think he has handled it okay. I don't think he's been ridiculously bad or great at it. I think he's been fine. And he will learn from this. He's going to be a star, like he already is. I think he cares, and that's as a teammate. I'm looking at this as a teammate, not as some fan. Like, I would love to have him in my locker room. Like, just would love it. I know what he's about. He cares. So, yeah, I love Malik. Malik Neighbors is a big piece of that, what they're going to be doing going forward.
Times we don't hit the panic button until we see him do an interview with Lil Wayne. That's when you hit the panic button. Right?
Oh, yeah. Stay away from it. Yeah. We'll have to get Ashley Lynn and all those player development people, they're going to have to take care of that. Don't let him, the media people, they can't let him, Jen Conley and them, they can't let him do those.
Times we kind of talked about, kind of everyone's struggles this year and the captains. What have you seen in Graham Gano this season?
He looked okay. I mean, I had a big problem with how that story was portrayed too, right? The whole, he's hurt, why didn't they have another kicker active? People, look at me. You can't dress 2 kickers on game day when your kicker, your 15-year vet says, I'm healthy, I can kick. That's not on Dable. That was not on Dable. None of that was on Dable. when Coach Dable goes to Graham Gano and says, my 15-year vet, and I could be off by a year, are you healthy to kick? And Graham says, yes, I am. As a coach, I'm not going to activate another kicker because I don't have to. My 15-year vet, who I trust, told me he's ready to go. And oh, by the way, he tore his hamstring chasing down a kick returner. His injury was a groin. So all these Twitter doctors try to make it a thing and say, oh, they're attached and it's associated. Bullcrap. So that got him off on a really bad start to the season. We win that game if Graham's healthy, doesn't pull his hamstring. I haven't seen much. I mean, listen, he just, he's had some injuries in the past couple of years, and he's, maybe struggled, but in terms of, versus his career number. But man, if you look across the league, it was like fireworks early, and now it's like, man, Young Wei Koo is struggling, and Justin Tucker is struggling, and Kaimi Fairbairn is struggling, and a lot of injuries. I mean, 10 or 15. I reached out to Coach Tobe here in Kansas City last week. I said, hey, I got 3 games left in me. If I want to get that credit in the season, that pension, that one more year in my 401k. And he said, all right, you're up next. Coach Tobe's the chief special teams coach, a buddy of mine. And I was just laughing, but they're on like their 4th kicker. So it's been a challenge. I can't judge Graham, because he hasn't really been out there and they're playing losing football. It's like, I don't know. I don't think Graham will be here next year, if I'm being honest.
He's under contract for 2 more years. I asked him about that.
Well, he does, but he doesn't have any guaranteed money left, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I mean,
right.
I mean, it's
yeah. But I'd be careful with that. I'd really be careful with that if I was the Giants because but you got to consider the injury factor, guys. He's been hurt the last 2 seasons, maybe 3. I can't remember back that far. So I think you probably could go another direction. He's had an amazing career.
Yeah, I mean, I worry about a lot of these guys down the stretch. I mean, we're not getting a lot of X's and O's for the game here against the Saints, but their defensive line is in shambles. Their offensive line is in shambles. I mean, I kind of want to see off that last game. Drew Lock's got a little something. He's like Jameis Winston. He's like Jameis Winston, very light. Light. But he's
Jameis Winston light.
Light. He's light as far as gunslinger. I mean, Jameis Winston is like he's the gunslinger with 2. He's got them both light in that holster. He just doesn't care. He cares about the game. He just will throw it up. He trusts his arm. He just sees it, throws it. Great play. Oh, pick 6. Great play. Oh, pick 6. He's just
it's unreal.
He had almost 500 yards in the game. I mean, he's fun.
And he's a great guy and he's hilarious. Everyone pulls for Jameis, I think. I hope I'm right. Media, people that love football. He's a cool character. He's fun. His teammates love him. I think if you gave Drew Lock some time, because for some reason the Giants are the only team in NFL history that cannot operate without a starting offensive line. You watch all these other teams; they're playing backup tackles and backup guards, and they can still function, right? They can. We see it. And the Giants lose one guy, and they just melt like a popsicle in July. Like they just can't fix it. They can't do anything. They just cannot function when Andrew Thomas goes.
Right. They could start Chris Hubbard, who they picked up, off the scrap heap, had been a decent player in the league, and Josh Izudu as their offensive tackles because, Illuminor didn't practice, so far this week, and
he's
Evan
been great,
Neal.
by the way. He's really been a nice player.
Yeah, he has.
If Illuminor stayed at right tackle, he was terrific. Once he moved to left tackle, which he didn't want to do, there were some issues there. The plan worked with Illuminor at right tackle and Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and then it went haywire. Yep. And so why did it go haywire? One of the reasons is because Evan Neal is not a reliable NFL player. So he's waiting in the wings. He's played left tackle, he's played right tackle, and he's not very good. Another reason why the plan went haywire is you have Josh Izudu, who was a 3rd-round draft pick, who they give chances to play. I thought he was drafted as a guard. They moved him to tackle. He has not been successful at all. So you have a Neal, the 7th pick in the draft, Izudu, a 3rd-round pick. a third round pick, guys. These guys are starting in the league everywhere. Everywhere. I mean,
Oh yeah.
The offensive line that you guys played with, you had second round.
I can go through it. Let me go. Kareem McKenzie was a third round pick. Dave Deal was a fifth round pick, right? Fourth or fifth?
Fifth.
Chris Snee was a second. Yep. And then Richie Soyber and Sean O'Hara were undrafted.
Kevin Booth what was Kevin Booth?
Kevin Booth was a seventh round pick of the Raiders.
Well, I'm saying so.
Your swing tackle, your swing guard, Kevin Booth could play anywhere.
And the depth piece, Adam Coates. Adam Coates was a sixth round?
07 class.
Yep.
I mean,
from
it should
Oregon
not be
State.
a leap of faith to put in a third round pick and have him function. So that is the failing. Is that
this is? I know we're bouncing around here. This is what drives Giants Nation crazy. Is when you lose an Andrew Thomas, it shouldn't go from we're pretty solid on offense to you can't even participate in the game. And that's what happens. And that's why some people are calling for Daboll. Is that coaching? I think it's the roster. If I'm being honest, Shane has been a little bit too, these are my picks, I'm going to keep plugging them in. I think you can't. Evan Neal can't play. Azudu can't play. I mean, I can go down the list from 22, 23 drafts of guys that cannot play in this league. And that's what that's what John Mara's going to have to wrestle with as he makes a decision. Do you want to give this regime 7 to 9 more players for them to develop? Because we have seen, but again, there's been a lot of coaching change on the O-line, and I think this is our second or third guy. So, but again, they're just not good players as of right now. Not saying they can't develop down the road somewhere else, because we've all seen every player that leave the Giants organization goes on to become a player of the week in some way, shape, or form, player of the month, whatever it is. They leave the Giants and they become even Sterling Shepard. My God, they're getting something out of him in Tampa. We couldn't get anything out of Sterling, and you miss his leadership. And we didn't touch on this. We did talk leadership, but I think you miss Sterling Shepard, massive leader. You don't have to make plays. This goes back to the Kayvon. It was taken out of context type answer, but. Sterling Shepard didn't make any plays last year. He was. Would you consider him a leader on that team?
Yeah.
Check. Saquon. I mean, they've got a lot of guys the Julian Loves, the guys who would speak in the tough, losses. Leonard Williams. They've lost, Jahad Ward. They've lost a lot of leadership in that locker room. And I think when you're making personnel decisions, Joe Shane, you have to take that into consideration. Okay? Like a Sterling Shepard. His value maybe isn't on the field. He's not going to give you, but man, what he can bring to that locker room is worth more than 472 yards and 1 touchdown on the season, in my opinion. What Sterling Shepard represents and brings as a human being to your locker room is more important. And man, I saw him. I got to see Sterling and Coach T-Mac when Tampa played Kansas City here at the hotel. Went over, hung out with my guys. Man, never seen Sterling Shepard happier.
Yeah,
he's in a good spot. So, but you miss his leadership.
Paul,
we can do a 3-hour show, guys. Yeah, we can do a 3-hour.
Yeah.
Anything?
Sorry,
Paul, go ahead. Paul, go ahead. Finish us off, man. Final thought, and then Tynes, we'll talk to you about what you have going on, and then we'll close the show.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, look, look, Lawrence, it's great having you back. It was, an incredibly selfish thing for you to step away, from this podcast. If they were 10-2, we wouldn't have really. Needed a lot of input for anybody else. At 2-10, we need everything we can. I know we text each other sometimes, and sometimes I'm thinking, Brandon and I are going over it, and then it's like Brandon says to me, Paul, what do you got? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you got? You know what I mean? Look, we don't want to bash and bash and bash. It's our jobs to report and to be entertaining and to try to, give a good picture, from the locker room and behind the scenes what's going on. It's been bad. That's why I think your perspective as a guy whose heart is in it, who's taken a step back and can look at it, was very good. It's good to have you back. Do you think they have a chance to win a game on Sunday? Do you care? Do you care who the quarterback is? Do you care if it's Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito?
I don't.
You want them to win.
And I hate feeling like that as a fan of this team, that someone that loves this organization. I hate feeling like that. I don't care. Like I had to ask my wife before I came on the show this morning, who are we playing? She's like, I don't know. So we had to look on our phones. I swear to you, on my kids' lives, I had no idea who we were playing this week. So that shows you that's a problem. Like, I want to care. I want to be invested because I love Sunday sitting down with my family. Like most people, they sit down with their families, their grandmas and grandpas, and it's a family thing, and it's just become not fun.
Tynes, what you got going on, man? Can you tell the people how to follow you with your new ventures and stuff?
Yeah.
We're so proud of you, man.
I've been busy. I got involved in some soccer teams over in Europe, which has been an amazing thing. But my everyday job, guys, is I run our sports and entertainment division at Creative Planning. It's a massive IRA firm here in Kansas City. We manage close to $400 billion, but there is a niche and a need, in my opinion, for these kids with the NIL, the pro athletes. I didn't have much growing up in life. Dad made, 35, 40 grand a year. We didn't have extras. We didn't have all this stuff. But I quickly learned about money in the NFL. And I want all these young people that are getting money in college that, we still know 90% of them are not going to play pro football, to take care of their money. Let's put it somewhere. Let's protect it. Let's grow this. So I've gotten a lot of personal pride out of that in the last year and a half. Helping young men and women, and it's not just men, it's women in college athletics too. And then we obviously have a significant amount of NFL players. So it keeps me close to athletes who I love, but it also gives me some purpose to help them get off on the right foot, because I certainly made some poor financial decisions at 22, 23 years old. So just trying to pass that on, and, because there's some significant dollars being thrown around in college. We've all heard about it, read about it. And the reality is, it doesn't matter if you're a 4 or 5 star athlete, you probably won't play pro football, right?
Yeah.
We know that just statistically. So if you can leave college with $1 million, $2 million in your account, that's a pretty good start to life. So listen, I've got a great team of smart people, of advisors and lawyers and CPAs that make this thing run. So, but I'm happy. I love it. I plan on doing it for a long time, and makes you feel good when you go to bed at night.
Rookie year as an undrafted free agent, I had a $6,500 signing bonus.
Let's go.
I spent $2,500 on some rims. So where were you my rookie year?
Brandon, I've been there. I did it. My rookie year, by week 5 in the NFL, I'm making about $7,200 a week. So, back when the rookie minimum was $225,
Yep.
I think that was the number in 2004. I went out and bought $9,000 3-piece GFG rims. What? That was more than I made in a paycheck. What was I doing? That's the only thing I've really. And then we've all, yeah. So I'm not going to go too far. I'm not going to spread my business out here, but I did dumb things.
You can't let them off the hook. Paul, you got to give us a crazy purchase. Do you have a crazy purchase?
You got to have crazy money to have a crazy purchase.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I've had any, I've been very, very conservative with my cars, jewelry, no. My wife has had some, big eyes.
That's fun.
Purchases, but no, we once did a kitchen renovation in my apartment, my old apartment. We found a guy, and it was like, man, we didn't know him. He's like half the price of everybody else, comes in,
geez.
great. This is great. We knew why he was half the price of everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
You get what you pay for.
like lopsided and crooked, and why does that match up? Oh, no, that's fine.
Oh, man.
So that was not a crazy purchase. That was a bad purchase, It's cost us more a few years later to rip all that stuff out and get it redone. So, yes, if I had a construction renovation advisor like Lawrence Tynes is a financial guy, I would not have gotten in that situation, I suppose.
That's right.
Got a little bit of everything on Blue Rush. Hey, Tynes, man, thanks for taking the time to hop on with us, man. We really appreciate that. And thank you guys for watching Blue Rush Preview Show. We're going to keep the conversation going on Sunday after the game with our Blue Rush post-game live show. So check out the New York Post Sports social channels for the link, because we love reading your comments throughout the post-game show. And shout out to our entire Blue Rush team for all of the work that they've put in throughout the season and, of course, throughout this week. And we'll see you all on a new episode next week.